Hello everyone, and welcome to my Soap Twist 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Luna Nozawa stood in the heart of it all, her hands tightly gripped in front of her, her gaze flitting frantically between the faces of those gathered around her. Her mother, Poppy, stood tightly by her side, her lips pulled together in a narrow line, as if she could will the truth to remain hidden. But Finn, steady and resolute, had just dropped a bombshell that no one expected. The discovery struck like a thunderclap, shattering the fragile peace that had settled over the room. Finn, with his unique blend of compassion and drive, had discovered a secret that had been carefully kept for months. Luna's baby, the small life that had prompted endless speculation and gossip among the Forrester, Logan, and Spencer clans, had a father, and it wasn't the one they expected. Finn's comments hung in the air, each syllable like a knife piercing the carefully crafted facades of those there. Luna's pregnancy had been the talk of Los Angeles for some weeks. The young woman, known for her quiet fortitude and artistic passion, had always been somewhat mysterious. She was Poppy's daughter, nurtured in a world far distant from the glitz and glamour of the Forrester business, but she had found herself dragged into it. Her pregnancy had aroused eyes, not just because of her young age, but also because of the mystery surrounding the father's identity. Luna had been guarded, dismissing questions with a bashful grin or a quick shift of topic. Poppy had also been unusually quiet, her usual flamboyance replaced by a cautious air that further added to the allegations. The conjecture has been unrelenting. Was this one of the Forrester men? Ridge, with his seductive charisma, had been ruled out early on. His devotion to Brooke was unbreakable, or so everyone assumed. Eric, the patriarch, was too old, and Thomas, despite his difficult experience with women, was focused with his own love relationships. Another possibility was the Spencers, Bill, who had a legendary reputation, or Liam, whose erratic heart had already caused trouble. Even Wyatt, the charming outsider, had been dragged into the gossip mill. But no one had arrived at the truth until Finn, with his quiet determination, pieced everything together. Finn had always been the steady hand in the storm, the doctor whose placid exterior concealed a burning need to discover the truth. He was motivated not just by his medical knowledge, but also by an instinctive sense of right and wrong, a moral compass that had guided him through the tangled web of his own family's secrets. He had spotted the contradictions in Luna's story early on, the way her eyes avoided his when he inquired about her doctor visits, and the way Poppy appeared to hover protectively whenever the subject of the baby arose. Finn had begun excavating, quietly at first, but with increasing eagerness as the pieces fell into place. It all started with an accidental encounter in the hospital. Luna had came in for a typical pregnant exam, and Finn, who was on duty, had discovered something unusual in her medical records. The dates did not correspond to the timetable she had provided, and a reference to a consultation with a specialist appeared out of place. Finn's interest was piqued, but he did not approach Luna directly. Instead, he started asking questions, cross-referencing records, and putting together a puzzle that no one else appeared to see. The truth, when it was revealed, was terrible. The father of Luna's child was none other than Jack Finnegan, Finn's own father. The crowd exploded in gasps as Finn conveyed the information, his voice steady but tinged with quiet sadness. Jack, who had been a minor character in the Forrester universe, recognized more for his legal brilliance than his personal entanglements, was the last person anybody would have suspected. He was older, more reclusive, and seemed loyal to his wife, Lee. But Finn had discovered evidence of a brief, reckless affair between Jack and Poppy, which had resulted in Luna's pregnancy. The consequences were quick and terrible. Steffi, Finn's wife, looked at him in bewilderment, her fists clenched at her sides. She had always been passionately protective of her family, and the notion that her father-in-law could betray them in this way was inconceivable. Brooke, ever the peacemaker, attempted to calm the group, but her words were overshadowed by Ridge's loud voice demanding answers. Eric, seated in his recliner like a weary king, seems to have finally succumbed to the weight of the family turmoil. And Luna, poor Luna, stood frozen, tears running down her cheeks as the reality she had battled to keep hidden was revealed. Poppy's reaction was the most extreme. She sprang toward Finn, her voice loud and desperate. "How could you do it?" she yelled, her hands flapping as if trying to physically force the truth away. "You have ruined everything." But Finn stood firm, his countenance a mix of sorrow and determination. He didn't want to hurt anyone, especially Luna, whom he had come to regard as a sister of sorts. But he couldn't let the deception persist, especially since it was tearing apart their already frail family. The story of how Jack and Poppy's affair began was tragic in and of itself, a collision of loneliness and poor choices. Jack, despite his apparent success, had always felt like an outsider in the Forrester world. His marriage to Lee was solid on paper, but years of unsaid bitterness had caused a schism between them. Poppy, bright and free-spirited, had been a welcome change in Jack's rigidly controlled life. Their affair was brief, a lapse in judgment that neither meant to have long-term ramifications. But when Poppy found she was pregnant, she chose to keep it from Jack, thinking the consequences would devastate both of their lives. Luna, stuck in the midst, had just lately learned the complete truth. When Poppy finally confessed to her, Luna was devastated, not only by the discovery of her father's identity, but also by the fact that her mother had kept it from her for so long. She had hoped to safeguard her baby and provided a life free of the turbulence of the Forrester world, but that ideal now seemed unachievable. The secret had been revealed, and the repercussions were beyond her control. As the family dealt with the information, old scars reopened. Steffi approached Finn, asking how he could keep such a secret from her while he investigated. Their marriage, already stressed by previous betrayals, was on the verge of disintegrating. Ridge and Brooke found themselves at odds, with Ridge blaming Brooke for failing to recognize the warning signs sooner, and Brooke arguing that the guilt lay with Jack's betrayal. Eric, the patriarch, attempted to appeal for togetherness, but his voice lacked the usual authority. The Forrester family, long a symbol of power and respect, was collapsing under the weight of its own secrets. For Luna, the anguish was nearly intolerable. She had always been the quiet one, a dreamer who sought solace in her art and isolation. Now she was embroiled in a scandal that threatened to define her. She adored her baby even before it was born, and the prospect of it growing up in a world full of judgment and whispers crushed her. She wanted to flee, take her child, and slip into a world where no one knew her identity. But she knew she couldn't yet. The truth had been revealed, and she had to face it, no matter how much it hurt. Finn, too, was struggling. He had done what he believed was right, but the penalty was greater than he had anticipated. His relationship with his father was strained, and his marriage was on unstable ground. He couldn't help but feel responsible for the suffering he'd caused, even though he knew the truth was essential. In his heart, he wanted to protect Luna and give her the opportunity to confront the truth with dignity. But now, as he glanced at the shattered faces around him, he wondered whether he had made a huge mistake. The days that followed were a flurry of squabbles, tears, and hesitant attempts at reconciliation. Jack attempted to explain himself, but his words fell flat against the wall of rage and betrayal. Lee, crushed by her husband's adultery, withdrew within herself, leaving Jack to deal with the consequences alone. Poppy, meantime, alternated between anger and misery, lashing out at anyone who tried to critique her. Luna, caught in the crossfire, sought to regain her footing, relying on Finn for support while dealing with her own bitterness toward him for revealing the truth. In the middle of the commotion, there were moments of calm sorrow that pierced harder than the most strident debates. Luna would sit in her room, her hands resting on her abdomen, murmuring promises to her unborn baby. She decided to be a better mom than those around her, providing her baby with the love and security she had often lacked. Finn, too, found himself thinking about his own background, the secrets and lies that had defined his existence. He wondered if he could ever regain the trust he had lost, not only with Steffi, but also with himself. The Forrester home, once a symbol of unrivaled riches and power, now resembled a house of cards, quivering under the weight of its own history. The discovery of Luna's baby's paternity was more than a scandal. It was a reckoning, requiring each member of the family to confront their own choices and the repercussions. For Luna, it was an opportunity to reinvent herself, to emerge from the shadows and take her position in a world that had attempted to break her. Finn saw it as a test of his ideals, a reminder that telling the truth, while vital, might come at a high cost. As the weeks moved into months, the family began to recover, but the scars would never completely vanish. Luna gave birth to a healthy baby girl called Hope, a tribute to the strength she had discovered within herself. The Forrester family, bruised but not shattered, rallied around the new life, seeing in her a cause to carry forward. Jack and Lee's marriage was still fragile, but they sought counseling, determined to rebuild what they could. Finn and Steffi also attempted to heal their relationship, learning how to handle the intricacies of trust and forgiveness. The truth of Luna's baby had changed everything, exposing the frailty of the bonds that tied them. But in the aftermath, it exposed the power that lurked beneath, the strength to face the truth, suffer the agony, and find a way ahead together. In the end, it was not the controversy that defined them, but their will to rise beyond it, one agonizing step at a time. The night was too quiet for the tempest brewing inside Luna's chest. She sat alone on the edge of her bed, the lamp's shadows extending far across the walls. Her hands rested on her stomach, which was already showing the soft curves of new life. A baby, her baby, was growing there, silently changing her future in ways she could never have predicted. But there was no joy in her heart, only worry, for the truth about who fathered her kid was shrouded in shame, anguish, and confusion. Her mother, Poppy, had always advised her to avoid secrets, telling her that the truth, no matter how difficult, was preferable to silence. Yet here she was, carrying a reality so heavy that she could barely breathe. The memories of that night tormented her. She had attended the Forrester party, which was supposed to be a modest celebration, but nothing about the evening was straightforward. Her head was cloudy, her senses muted as she held a drink in her hand. And then him, Finn, steadfast, kind, the man who had always been a peaceful presence in her life, married to Steffi, whom she admired greatly. She had not intended for it to happen. She couldn't recall all of the details, just the warmth of his words, the stability of his hand as he led her away, and the world whirling until it all blurred together. The following morning, shame filled the holes in her memory. And weeks later, the test confirmed her pregnancy. Initially, she persuaded herself it couldn't be his. She clung to that notion with desperation, hoping her child belonged to someone else, anyone. However, the timings coincided too closely, and the truth became more apparent with each passing day. Finn was the father of her child. She felt guilty every time she saw him. She noticed the way he smiled at Steffi and the love in his eyes for his family. And she wondered how she had accidentally inserted a ticking time bomb into their lives. The weight of quiet gnawed on her. She had not told him, nor had she told anybody else, including her mother. She attempted to appear normal, going about her work and attending to daily activities. But her reflection betrayed her, dark bags beneath her eyes, the hollow expression of someone bearing too much pain. One evening, Poppy took notice. "Luna, love, you've been quite distant. Talk to me." Luna shook her head. "I can't." "Is it the baby?" Her mother's voice was filled with tenderness, yet it simply broke Luna further. Tears welled in her eyes and ran down her cheeks before she could stop them. "I don't know how to say it," Luna said quietly. "Say what?" "The father. It's not who people think. It is worse than that. If I disclose the truth, I'll destroy people who don't deserve it." Poppy halted, her awareness settling gradually. Her fingers trembled as she reached for her daughters. "Luna, who was it?" The stillness between them was unbearably long. Finally, Luna's lips parted, revealing a single name. "Finn." The phrase seemed to resonate, breaking the silence between them. Poppy's eyes widened and her face paled, as if she had seen a ghost. "No," she gasped. Luna, tell me you are mistaken. Please tell me this isn't real. But Luna cried even more. I wish I could. I did not intend for that to happen. I can't even remember everything well. But I understand, Mom. I know it's him. Poppy's heart broke, not only for her daughter, but also for the anguish this revelation would cause. She had witnessed too many families split apart by secrets, and too many lives destroyed by one wild night. But she also understood that silence would not last long. Nonetheless, Luna implored her. Please do not make me tell. If Steffi or Finn find out, everything will shatter. I'll carry this alone if I have to. However, carrying it alone proved impossible. Each day, the guilt became heavier, and the anguish became excruciating. She watched Finn laugh with Steffi's children, kiss his wife's forehead, and be the kind of man every woman wished for. A hollow aching in her breast informed her that her child would never know their father in the light of honesty. Weeks passed, and the secret festered. Until one afternoon, fate interfered. Finn discovered her outside the hospital, her face pallid and her hand pressed on her stomach. His eyes immediately widened with concern. Luna, are you okay? She attempted to brush it off. Only a bit dizzy. I'll be okay. But he led her to a bench and sat alongside her with that old stability that both comforted and disturbed her. Don't push yourself. You have to be careful, especially now. Her heart stopped. Did he know? Could he see truth in her eyes? His gaze softened. You've changed lately. Is everything okay with the baby? Her throat clenched. It's yours, I nearly said. But terror knocked them back down. I'm fine, she whispered. But Finn was unconvinced. Later, as he walked her to her car, Poppy appeared. She froze when she saw them together, her expression revealing more than she intended. Finn noticed. Is there anything I should know? He inquired thoughtfully. That question was the fracture in the dam. Poppy gazed at Luna with sorrowful eyes, and Luna knew the truth would come whether she was ready or not. Finn, Poppy murmured gently, her voice shaking, you should prepare yourself. Luna is carrying a child. It's yours. The words lingered thick in the air, like a bomb dropped that neither could recover. Finn's face had lost its color. What? His voice was harsh and unbelieving. Luna sobbed frantically. I did not want this to happen. I did not want to ruin your life. I'm not even sure how to explain it, but it is true. Finn stumbled back a step, as if the world under him had shifted. His mind reeled, memories rushing back, the party night flashing like shards of broken glass. He remembered her perplexity, weakness, and how wrong everything seemed even then. No, he said softly, his hands quivering. This can't be real. But it was. And as reality set in, so did the devastation. Finn couldn't look at Steffi for several days without feeling guilty. He loved and adored her, but he had unintentionally betrayed her in the worst way. He fathered another woman's child, her cousin's child. When Steffi finally learned the truth, the sorrow in her eyes was excruciating. She regarded Finn as if he were a stranger, someone she no longer recognized. How could you? She muttered, her voice breaking. How could this happen? With her of all people? Finn tried to explain, but no words could soothe her heart. The wound was too deep. Luna watched everything fall apart, the guilt crushing her until she could not breathe. This was never what she wanted. She had never meant to harm a family or cause so much grief. She had only want love, belonging, and tranquility for her child. Instead, she had only brought heartache. Her evenings became darker, plagued by the cries of a future she was afraid she had destroyed. Will her baby be cursed by this scandal? Will they always be a reminder of a mistake, an unhealed wound? Despite her grief, Luna knew she needed to be strong, for the small heartbeat inside her, for the life that had no responsibility in any of this. The world may crumble, families could split, and hearts could break. When her child was born, she looked into their eyes and saw more than shame. She would regard love as the only pure thing she had left to offer. Nonetheless, the melancholy never left her. It lingered like a shadow, a reminder of the night that changed everything, the secret that shattered the life she had desired. And in the quiet hours of the night, when everyone else was sleeping, Luna would murmur to her unborn child, her tears soaking the pillow. "I'm sorry," she'd reply. "I am so sorry. But I pledge to love you enough to make up for all the agony. Even if the world turns against us, you will never be alone." The stars outside provided no answers, only silent witness to a heartbreaking narrative about a secret father, a damaged family, and a young woman carrying both the weight of guilt and the fragile hope of new life.